Hi, welcome. Welcome to the program on horticultural therapy and how to use it in your existing garden program. My name is Trish Hildinger. I'm a registered horticultural therapist, and myself, along with my co-presenter Latrina Candia, will be speaking with you today about how to incorporate horticultural therapy into your gardens. So first, I'd like to introduce Latrina. She is based in Santa Cruz, California. She has her certificate in horticultural therapy and is pursuing her professional registration. She believes all growth is positive and no place is this more evident than with plants and people. Her interest in horticultural therapy started before she was even aware of reaping the benefits. She was raised by elders in a garden that was used for both nourishment and to recover from the stress of daily life. 30 years later, she has witnessed the profound benefits bestowed upon participants of a Life Lab program in elementary schools here in Santa Cruz, at 2 assisted living residences working with elders with dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as at a skilled nursing facility for drug and alcohol patients. She is currently cultivating a patio garden, and this fall she will be attending San Jose State University and pursuing her registration in horticultural therapy.
Hi, my name is Latrina Candia, and I'm excited to share the possibilities of horticulture therapy. This presentation is the collaborative efforts of Trish Hildinger and myself. Trish Hildinger is based in Santa Cruz, California. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Horticulture and is a registered horticulture therapist through the American Horticulture Therapy Association. Before beginning her current work in horticulture therapy, she taught gardening to children, teachers, and community members for over 25 years, both in Santa Cruz and through Life Lab teacher workshops across the United States. Combining her gardening skills with her desire to help others led her to horticulture therapy. In 2017, she completed her professional registration, and in 2018, she started Horticulture Therapy Santa Cruz and co-founded the California Horticulture Therapy Network. Currently, she works at 2 assisted living residences, as well as at the Stroke and Disability Learning Center at Cabrillo College.
Horticultural therapy. So what is it? Maybe some of you have heard of it. Maybe some of you are acquainted with it. Hopefully, maybe even one of you has a certificate or is a registered horticultural therapist. I'm going to go on the assumption that you are here because you want to learn about it, and so I'll tell you the definition of it. The textbook definition is that evidence-based use of plants in horticultural activities to accomplish individualized goals or group goals conducted by registered professional, and they're registered through the American Horticultural Therapy Association. So let's break that down into something we can understand. Horticultural therapy uses techniques using plants and plant-based activities to help students or clients, participants, work on something emotional, cognitive, social, and or physical. So using those techniques in the garden, it can be done indoors, it can be done with potted plants, in the ground, raised beds, all kinds of different activities. I have found in my practice that living plants are ideal, but we also work with dried plants and flowers and activities based on those, and those are important tools to use if you're in, especially in the winter, in harsher climates. So some examples. So for example, if you have a client that's in physical rehabilitation, you might use plants and plant activities to help them with their balance or their motor skills or something to that extent. One of the goals they're working on, and use the plants to get there. If you're in a vocational horticulture program, maybe working with adults who have cognitive disabilities, you can use it for sequencing, for learning work tasks, and obviously the cognitive part of knowing plants and learning about them and their care. Horticultural therapy can be used also in mental health settings. It can be used on emotional venues. I have a friend who works with young women who have had eating disorders that can be used not only to work on their emotional health, but also giving them some nutritional health as well. I work in assisted living residences now. We work a lot on the social interaction, the fine motor skills, and cognitive as well, trying to evoke memory and happy times. For your populations, obviously we're talking about students, all kinds of incredible ways to use horticultural therapy. If you're already working in a garden, you know, the physical benefits are probably the most obvious because we're digging and we're getting our hands in the soil and all that. But you can also work on anger management. You can work on sequencing. You can work on sensory if you have a child who's autistic. Depending on what their goals are, and there's documentation that's done by horticultural therapists so you have a measurable outcome. And you can also do group work and have a general goals for the group with what you're working on. So this is an example of a fairly formal documentation piece that would be used probably by a registered horticultural therapist and perhaps in conjunction with other team members like an OT or a PT or a psychologist or psychiatrist. You can see there's a place for the therapist name, site, date, time, the activity name, and then in this piece I have two separate outcomes. You'll see outcomes on the left side and then some outcomes on the right side, and I put those both here to demonstrate a group outcome. So this first one is group outcomes, social, fine and gross motor skills, and sensory for a group. And then on this right side I have an imaginary student who maybe is low on the spectrum, and it's a very specific goals for that individual. The objective status is a method to use to quickly read, once the form is filled out, to quickly read kind of where that student or participant was. So in my example, the student Lila is in a group setting, and so she socially interacted, she met all her objectives, she used her fine and gross motor skills, she experienced sensory stimulation with 3 items, she fully participated, and she just needed a tiny bit of assistance, 0 being she didn't need any help whatsoever or reminders at all, and 5 being you've almost done it for the participant, whatever the activity was. So in the comments I have some very specific comments for her, and then you'll see Martine met objective 1, partially met objective 2, and then met objective 3, participated and needed some assistance, and then again with some specific comments. Latrina later on in this presentation has another style of documentation that might be a little bit more to a garden teacher or garden educator might use it. It's a little less formal. Any kind of documentation is fine, and if you do work with a team or if you're working with somebody at your school or an IEP, they will probably have certain documentation that they want you to fill out. They'll have a format for you already. And again, this is really a registered horticultural therapist is filling this out. Probably not somebody, possibly somebody with a certificate, but probably not, and definitely not with social gardening or somebody who hasn't had any horticultural therapy classes at all. There are 2 levels of horticultural therapists. There's a certificate level and then there's a registration level. So in order to get your certificate, you need to complete 4 different classes from an accredited program that's accredited through the American Horticultural Therapy Association. And there are 9 of those throughout the United States, and we'll have resources at the end that list those different 9 that are in different parts, from the East Coast to the West Coast. So that will give you a certificate, and you can call yourself a horticultural therapist. If you want to go beyond that and become a registered horticultural therapist, you need a lot more intensive training and education. It includes an undergraduate degree of some sort. It includes a minimum of 36 units in horticulture classes, human science classes like psychology and counseling, and horticultural therapy included in that. You also need to complete a 480-hour internship underneath a registered horticultural therapist that has had at least 1 year of full-time experience. And last but not least, then you need to have registered with the American Horticultural Therapy Association. Perhaps you've heard of other types of therapy, maybe therapeutic gardening or something like that. So I want to just kind of break down some of the differences. So there's social horticulture, which is kind of what you do with your family in your garden. It's what people do on the weekends for leisure, for recreation. It might be happening in a community garden. That's just social horticulture. That's kind of basic gardening. The next level up might be called therapeutic horticulture, and I would say this is where school gardens fall into this category. I don't know of any school programs that have registered horticultural therapists on staff, so that's why I put it into the therapeutic horticulture. So the purpose of the program is the well-being of the participants. The goals are not clinically defined or documented, but the leader has training in horticulture as a medium for the well-being of humans. And then there is horticultural therapy, which is specific, and you document your treatment goals. So as I showed before in the documentation piece, it's actually specific goals. You might work with a team. So at a healthcare setting, you might work with the psychologist or the physical therapist or the OT, something like that, part of a team where the goals are defined and you're using horticultural therapy to meet those goals. So the therapeutic horticulture and the hort therapy, you might find those in a healthcare place, a rehabilitation center, maybe residential setting. Within those types of horticulture, it can happen in all different kinds of settings. We can talk about school gardens, obviously. It can take place in residential facilities. It can take place in there's a lot of gardens now that are called healing gardens, or gardens that are enabling. At our local hospital, they have what they're called healing gardens. So a healing garden it's a place. It's a physical place. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a horticultural therapy program going on there. It might just be a place for patients or family of patients to calm and relax just by the nature of being outside in a garden, maybe with some soothing elements. There's a whole lot of design, preparation, and intention that goes into a healing garden or therapeutic landscape. And in order for it to be a viable horticultural therapy program, you need to have a professional in that doing the programming to make that actually be an official program. So now that we've learned a bit about horticultural therapy and some settings and different places that it happens in, as well as some of the techniques and documentation, my colleague Latrina will be speaking next. She is going to demonstrate a lemon verbena tea making activity that one would do with students, and then she will be breaking it down with the horticultural therapy components. Please welcome Latrina.
Thank you, Trish, and hello again. I'm Latrina, and together with Cyrus, we will be demonstrating the benefits of combining horticultural therapy with school gardens. This horticultural therapy activity proposes making lemon verbena tea to support a geography or history lesson. Herbs are plants that engage your senses and are easy to grow indoors or outdoors, making them the perfect plants for youth gardeners. This demonstration provides ideas to augment your lessons. Our demonstration features Cyrus, who is 11 years old. However, this lesson can be customized for children grade levels K through 12. A group size of 4 to about 15 students should be considered to reap the social, cognitive, and emotional benefits of this activity. As you may have noticed, only a few materials are needed for this activity. Those are the lemon verbena plant, muslin tea bags, teacups, a tea kettle, and in addition, you may consider optional products made from lemon verbena, such as deodorant or essential oils. My slide has fancy materials, but you have free license to be as inventive as your resources allow. Have students bring in their own teacups, use disposable cups, or use a thermos as a tea kettle. The possibilities are endless. Depending on the length of your lesson, you will have to determine whether you will grow the plants with your students or purchase it instead. My 5-gallon plant in the demonstration was purchased 3 months ago and has matured enough to provide tea for about 20 students. Lemon verbena is a shrub and can develop as tall as 8 feet. It is also a perennial, which means it will produce annually and can be implemented in future lessons. A plan is a plant without a T. Making an effective lesson plan takes time, dedication, and understanding of students' abilities and goals. In the field of horticultural therapy, each session is customized to motivate clients to improve as much as possible. An assessment sheet is created to achieve specific goals and objectives during a session. Behavioral and observable goals are clearly defined so that the objectives can be measured. For our demonstration, the lemon verbena plant is used to extend the exploration of South American culture. We have considered the cognitive, physical, and behavioral abilities of the student. After each objective, I will explain the cognitive, physical, social, and emotional benefits of this horticultural therapy activity.
So we grew this gigantic plant. It's here, and I'm imagining that it has some history. Should we talk about it?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you have any guesses or any prior knowledge just about the herb itself.
Well, it looks like it could be used for tea. I mean, that's what a lot of plants could be used for.
Yeah, most herbs are used for tea. You're right. Any other uses you think?
It smells good.
It smells good, huh? Does it have any smell that you're familiar with?
I mean, there is some perfume-like smell, but it smells a lot like this, actually.
Really? It's funny that you mentioned that, because the Portuguese and Spanish traders, they used to trade lemon verbena with Europeans in the 1800s, and that's exactly what they used it for, perfume. Any other interesting ways you think that this plant could be used?
Well, you said it was good for perfume, right?
Right.
What about deodorant?
Deodorant is a good guess. Actually, I have some personal deodorant that I use that is lemon verbena scented. So yeah, you're right. You can use it for deodorant. Let's see. What else could we figure out about this plant?
Where it was grown?
Where was it grown? Do you have any idea?
Doesn't seem like anything I've seen normally grown here, so maybe South America?
South America is a good guess, specifically in the countries of Argentina and Chile. So this plant was traded all the way in the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere over to us now currently in North America. So awesome guess. I think we should get started brewing some tea for ourselves, huh?
Okay.
Do you want to get up and turn the kettle on?
Yeah, sure.
The objective of this portion of the video is to investigate. I wanted to encourage the student to answer questions about the lemon verbena plant, with the ultimate goal of increasing his cognitive abilities. Some of the benefits of increasing cognitive ability include promoting curiosity and also improving levels of neuronal plasticity, which is essential for learning and memory.
While the water is getting hot, we can harvest some leaves for ourselves. Would you like to help me with that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the professional snippers, and I'm going to take some scissors. So we want we want this plant to continue to give us leaves. So we want to make sure we harvest it the correct way. So we want to find the main branch, Point to the main branches.
These seem like the main branches.
Yeah, those are the main branches that are coming up from the base of the plant. And then each branch has a stem that's growing its own leaves. So we want to find the node. Do you know what a node is?
Isn't it like the beginning of the plant?
It is the beginning of the stem from the branch. Looks like our water is ready. You want to turn that on? So we're not quite ready to pour yet. We want to make sure that we harvest our leaves first.
Got it.
So we're going to find a stem and snip it right at the node.
This professional dessert's really good.
They snip pretty well, huh?
Oh, and that's why they're professional.
They're really sharp too, so we have to make sure we're careful. So did you find two good stems?
Yeah, I think I did.
All right. All right. I'm gonna designate you the tea brewing master and ask for you to put these in our cups and also pour the hot water on top.
Thank you. No.
The aim in this portion of the video was to harvest. As you can see, the student navigated sharp scissors, listened very carefully to how to harvest specific parts of the plant, and also was able to navigate pouring boiling hot water into teacups. The goal was physical. Some of the benefits of this portion of the demonstration include improving dexterity and hand and eye coordination. I think it's a good time for us to reflect a little bit on the lesson. Are there any questions you have about the lesson?
I mean, how they traded it, but what did they trade it for?
Well, I don't know what was available in Europe at that time. That's a really good question. I wonder what did Europe have to give them in return?
Yeah, probably something that wasn't available in South America.
That's a really good point that you bring up, because South America would be really what type of temperature would they have there?
Yeah, pretty hot.
Pretty hot temperature there. And if you go up north, they might have what?
A little bit colder.
A little bit colder. What are some things that probably grow in cold weather?
Well, I when I think of it, like mushrooms and stuff like that.
Nice and moist there, huh?
Yeah, they usually actually adapt really well to harsh environments.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else, really.
It's okay. Maybe we've expressed all the knowledge that we have for now. We can think of things later. I think our tea might be ready. Let's go grab it.
Probably. Maybe see.
Reflection was a key part in this portion of the demonstration. I wanted the student to increase their social abilities. Some of the benefits of this portion include developing a mindfulness, creating an opportunity to discuss the lesson with peers, learning a skill that can be repeated with friends and family, and also building confidence in using necessary skills to attempt and complete a new task.
Seems a lot like it.
Yeah, it does. You know, some things that I read about lemon verbena, it's supposed to be really good for stress.
And how's that? And how does it help with stress?
Because it has these antioxidant properties that are good for getting rid of toxins from your body.
So you think this might be a good thing that like kids who are like in their working on final exams or stuff like that would have a good idea to drink this?
Yeah, it would be a good study tea. It could because of its anti-stress properties, it could be good for sleeping. So you could tear a couple of leaves off and put it in a satchel and put it under your pillow at night. And it's also good to make an essential oil.
What's that for?
It's for like aromatherapy. So any takeaways you wanna share with the camera?
I mean, I really like this. The tea, I like how it's greens, and I like the anti-stress thing. It sounds really cool and really like relaxing.
Yeah.
I was glad to learn about this.
The simple objective of just creating a discussion also has very therapeutic benefits. I selected the goal to be emotional for this portion of the demonstration. One of the benefits could be just the opportunity to express the students' thoughts and to share their vulnerabilities in a safe environment. After sipping tea, it just seems natural to allow students to describe the flavors and feelings and any memories that may have been evoked at this time. Discussing their thoughts and even writing them down could be a good way to close the horticultural therapy session. For creating this video, I know we went on a walk and you talked about some memorable moments from elementary school about a garden. You want to share your story?
Yeah, just so I don't like make anything like no credit thing. I will tell that the school that I went to was Burnley Moran, where they did this. You see, well, they made this garden where they had 4 different places where we had to plant. There was plants that were for sound, plants that were for touch, plants that were for taste, and plants that were for look.
It sounded like it was for your senses.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, and that's exactly what it said. And plants for your senses.
Mm-hmm.
So my team was sound, but unfortunately we didn't have that much time, so we couldn't really find anything that made any sound in time.
Mm-hmm.
So we planted some stuff and added some bells to it.
Oh, nice.
But everyone else did way more things. Like, I think one of the other things, I think it's called lamb something. When the touch.
Lamb's ear.
Yeah, lamb's ear. That's what they did for touch.
Nice.
So you could touch it. Look was like sunflowers and stuff like that.
Do you have any gardens at your current school? Your current middle school?
Current school, not really. I mean, the current school, I guess we were planting tulips,
Mm-hmm.
but we only did that like once. So I didn't really, not really a garden there.
I understand. So the lesson we just completed is a middle school lesson, and I think it would be perfect for middle school. Do you think your peers would be interested in growing a plant and making tea and understanding the history of it?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. It has more of a backstory to it than just tulips, actually. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for assisting me with this video. You were a great assistant, and it's going to be nice having tea with you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Latrina. That was a great representation of horticultural therapy in action. So a little bit of a recap on that. A huge thing is the intention and the lesson planning. And I also wanted to point out that the timing is very slow, and that was with intention also, to capture everything that can happen within that moment. And it's also a time to give students that are a little bit slower and not as eager to respond or have a lot longer thought process to be able to respond in time, and to really let them use their thought process to slow down kind of our fast-paced world and let them ruminate a little bit. And it's okay if there's some time and some space, and really encouraging that spaciousness with a reply. It's not always possible in a classroom setting or in a garden setting, but that was part of what we wanted to demonstrate there. And also to point out that having an intention when you're lesson planning, but also realizing and having an awareness that your current lessons that you're doing or that you have done in the past have a lot of different components, right? They have a lot of that physical, emotional, cognitive, and certainly a social aspect to them already. And having an awareness of that prior to going into it, I think just makes it a more rich lesson and can be tailored a lot more to the students. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Please be sure to check out the resources page for listing on different organizations that have more information on horticultural therapy, on accredited programs, and some listings of some scientific research about horticultural therapy and getting your hands in the dirt.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your conference.